So you've got people selling, looking actively to sell their lettings books.
Yeah.
What sort of time frame does a sale take, generally speaking?
The ability to grow is harder, but really good operators with really good reputations and really good marketing and really good data, they will of course organically grow. You either attract clients or you don't.
The game's changed though, isn't it?
Because they were successful doing something in the 90s, the fact of the matter is they're rowing a ship and the other guy's got an engine. They're done for.
If they have got that relationship ability and that understanding of people, but they back themselves with the right technology, and you can fast track your way into a market.
But ultimately, I'm not so sure the art of estate agency is lost. I think the leaders don't know how to teach it.
Is it different in the premium market?
The higher up you go in the market, the more subjective it is what it's worth. I've achieved £500,000 more than the next lowest valuation.
I promise you, if you pay correctly, have the right environment and the right leadership to stop that at source, there's no shortage of talent.
You two. Yeah. There's some gold going to be here for the listener, because you've got some questions there that a lot of listeners will probably want to ask.
Yeah.
Because so let's just start.
Do it on tape.
We're already talking, right? We've had a punch up. I've just broken them up. So this is Estate Agent Showdown with Iain White.
This is a lie.
This is a lie. Yeah. And this is the wonderful James Kendall. If you don't recognise him already from being on Match of the Day recently, is that right?
Yes, I was on Match of the Day.
He was on Match of the Day recently, but. We were just talking about lettings.
Yes, we were.
So these are conversations. So let's just kick off there, because there's a lot of activity out there in the lettings market with regards to acquisition, and there's a lot of agents, a bit like yourself, James, that have probably been mainly focused on sales.
Yeah.
And I think you had Lucy Noonan on your podcast not so long ago.
The TCA one, yeah.
And I think, I'm guessing that she just reinforced your decision to look at growing a lettings business.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. To be honest, I had her on because I was just interested in, because I'd seen her on social media, and I was just interested in how the mechanics worked of buying and selling agencies, because everyone seems on social media seems to put their finger up in the air and go, well, if you turn over 500 grand, then your business is worth 500 grand or it's worth £1 million. And I was just interested to, I suppose, go down the rabbit hole really and find out actually what it's really worth. It's like house buying and selling, isn't it? A home seller thinks their home's worth X amount, but the reality is, and what the data says, is completely different.
Well, we've got Iain does a lot of business acquisitions and sales and brokering and stuff like that. So a really good place to start is, what's that market like at the minute? Tell us a little bit more about the lettings kind of, I suppose, multiples, the kind of ideas that are out there in the market. Is it a good market? Is it a bad market? Tell us more.
Well, there's lots of activity. There is consolidation in the estate agency space, particularly the letting space. Because in reality, if you haven't got big bulk, it's very hard to operate profitably. If you've got 50 properties, it's very difficult to operate profitably. So, in addition to which, there is an attack on the private rental sector by the ruling classes, which makes it very difficult and tedious for a small business owner to have a lettings business. Yeah. So they're either acquiring their way into the space.
Is that really the only way at the minute?
No, you can grow. I mean, look, if you've got good technology and AI and you've got good reputation, you'll attract landlords. But it's very difficult to. You'd have to go backwards on your P&L before you could go forwards, because unless you're a lettings expert yourself, you're going to have to recruit, and you've got to have so many properties managed before.
Do you find most of the salespeople in a estate agency not only aren't lettings experts, they actually fear getting involved with lettings because there's a hell of a, there's just a, I suppose, they mentally distance themselves from it, generally speaking?
Yes, if you take the independent sector, most business owners would be from a sales background, because I think they're more gregarious creatures by design. They're more yes.
Call me Greg.
They're more outward, more brave, more bold. That's not to say the others are boring on farts, but ultimately, generally speaking, and those business owners then tend to either acquire a lettings book, but they typically acquire it with somebody that then becomes their trusted leader of their lettings business. And certainly after the property's let, for most estate agents, owners, that's just a dark art. They don't want to go anywhere near. Once it's let, it's let. Massive compliance issues, massive regulatory issues that estate agents aren't necessarily that good at that sort of stuff. Are they being compliant? I was terrible at it. So, that's why you're seeing consolidation. So there is an active market, but because of the pressures and because of the tax changes and various other things there is a rush to sell before March, because the Entrepreneurs Relief changes in March 26. It just changed.
So
in
what
March
does that
gone
mean?
by.
Because though we're all in the business as such, there's a lot of things that can pass people by. So tell the viewers, my viewers, what that looks like for someone.
So at the moment, everybody that's a UK tax-paying citizen has £1 million lifetime worth of entrepreneurs relief. That means they can sell a business asset up to the value of £1 million, and at the moment they only pay 14% entrepreneurs. That went up. It was 10%, but on the 31st of March 2025, it went up to 14, and it's going up to 18 on the 31st of March 2026. And there is potential that £1 million might change in the forthcoming budget in November. Downwards, it's not going to go up. I don't think they'll touch it personally, but if it's going to do anything, it will definitely be to get more tax, not less tax. So there is a rush to get it through before the 4% on entrepreneurs.
Because there was a rush last year, I suppose, wasn't there?
We had a mini rush last year. More of a rush this year because you've got the budget as well. So there's lots of deals trying to be completed before November.
So you've got people looking actively to sell their lettings books.
Yeah.
And they should be probably aware of the deadline. What sort of time frame does a sale take, generally speaking?
If it's a small book, a couple of hundred properties, maybe 12 weeks. If your business is well run and you can lay your hands on the documentary evidence, there's a thing called there's due diligence that has to be done. And as long as you're in a position to be able to put that stuff out there quickly, if you do run a pen and paper business, then might take a bit longer.
And what sort of multiples are they working towards at the minute? I mean, there is an appetite for buying these books, isn't there? And for companies to invest in a lettings business for reoccurring revenue reasons and so on and so forth.
It'll vary, but and once you get over a certain size of business or a certain size of lettings book, it will go more to a multiple of profit or an EBITDA transaction. Most of the smaller ones would be on a percentage of multiple of turnover, and it will. Largely speaking, it'll be between 1.5 and 2.2, 2.3 times your lettings turnover, depending on geography, your average fees, and what percentage of your book is managed versus what's recurring revenue, because that has more value than let-only revenue. How compliant you are, and how badly the owner the buyer wants the business. Inside the M25, we'll always go for a bit more because the rents are higher, the fees are typically higher. It's nearly always managed. So, are
you finding though that this is interesting for you listening to this, and it's interesting to me because I've got a lettings business, but I'm not looking to sell it. But do you find that in that particular market at the minute, because landlords are being literally squeezed, let's say in the last 6, 7, 8 years, that the only way to really grow it is through acquisition, or I think you said earlier on there are other avenues?
Yeah, look, you can grow a lettings book without acquisition, but it's incredibly difficult because there is a disproportionate number of landlords leaving the space. So you've got a leaky bucket through no fault of your own. There's nothing you can do about that. So if you lose 10 landlords and you put in 11, you've grown by 1. Before you had 2 or 3 landlords leaving, you put in 11, you've grown by 8 or 9. So the ability to grow is harder. And there may be, with more legislative change, the number of people leaving might outweigh the ability to grow a lettings book potentially. But really good operators with really good reputations and really good marketing and really good data and really good, the way they put themselves into the market and recommendations, they will of course organically grow a lettings business just as in the same way that they'd organically grow a sales business. You either attract clients or you don't.
Are you still attracted to building a lettings business?
Yeah.
And is acquisition going to be your route? Look,
no.
I get a referral fee if I pass him over?
Well, the thing is, what really sparked my interest in doing it is because at the premium end of the market, I meet so many landlords. Yeah. And in the normal resi market, the landlords you tend to come into contact with tend to be accidental landlords. Yeah. Whereas, a client that I've just met recently, she owns... Well, she's got a multi-million-pound portfolio across commercial, residential, etc. We've only just put their place on the market, and already she's saying to me, "I love this. Do you do renting? Could you help me with my rental portfolio?" Yes, I could. So even before that, I've got developer clients that build to rent as well, and they've said, "Look, we love what you do on sales. could you do this for us on the letting side?
By design.
And it just seems like a natural progression. My plan isn't to rent the flat above the chippy in the nicest way. That's not what I'm planning to do. We're planning to take more of a medium to high end approach on the lettings, but also we'll look after portfolios. That's what we want to do. We really want to try and drill down into how we can maximise rents, maximise landlords' returns, because they are getting squeezed. And I do think, and it's a bit like, and again, it's only my view from the outside in, and I'm not doing the lettings. I'm part of the business, but as Iain quite rightly said, I've brought somebody in that's got 15 years experience to be a co-director with me. And she's going to deal the day-to-day, the lettings, the compliance, because she's brilliant at all of that. But I suppose where I kind of come in is kind of feeding the front of the funnel, if that makes sense, because people are asking me if I can do lettings for them. These are people that have got, a portfolio as small as 3 and 4, all the way up to 25, 50, 100 properties. I've got one client, in fact, at the moment who asked me, got to go through the board and we've got to get our ducks in a row first. Yeah. But as a huge investment company, they own, I think I looked on Spectre, and they've got over 2,000 properties. We just sold 2 for them. And the manager that I was dealing with said, if you can do that for us for lettings, like there's a conversation to be had with the board about taking over some of the ones. And they literally buy new builds off plan and rent them out for 10 years, dispose and start again.
Yeah, I'm going to do BMV. I mean, if you can leverage that type of relationship that you're already winning, I mean, you're leveraging you've created a reputational piece.
Yeah.
You may not be able to, a lot of your high net worth clients may have low net worth properties in their portfolio because they tend to perform best from a yield perspective. So you might find the properties they're dealing with are not on brand.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if you're managing them, but yeah, of course, leverage the relationship. Why not? And even if you decided not to have lettings, you what was that? You're talking about commissions?
Yeah.
You would just set up an arrangement with somebody else. Surely, I mean,
yeah.
Business is business. But yeah, I mean, if you can self manage and these people trust you, go take their portfolios, look after them.
Well, the other part as well, the other piece of the puzzle is we've got Universal Studios coming to Bedfordshire, and so the plan is laid out, and I've made no secret of this, is to the lettings business will spin up, but the long term view will be to manage Airbnbs in the area and be the local person to deal with that. So it will be the name of the company. We'll just do that, if that makes sense. So. All different parts. I've got so many different things and plates spinning at the moment, but I just know that, as you know from knowing me so long, I'm just one of these people that says yes and figures it out as I go later on. But I've got a lot of the right stuff happening. I was having a conversation before I got here, actually, with Mike and Ollie from Frank Modern, who are up the road in Peterborough, and you get 2 different types of people. And Iain kind of hit the nail on the head earlier about sort of lettings and sales agents sometimes. And I'm not saying it's specific, if you're a letting agent, you're this, and you're a sales agent, you're this. But you get generally 2 different types of people in life. People that sit there and plan and get paralysis by analysis. And then you get other people that let's just get on with it and figure it out as we go and make a success. Because like in a sales business, you can be as compliant as you like. And we had a laugh and a joke about that earlier. You can have all the compliance and all the ticks in the box, but if you've got no houses to sell, you've got no business. Whereas you need to just, my view is, get on with it, get some deals, and then figure out how to fix all the things that you need to later.
You said leverage relationships.
Yeah.
Is relationship building and maintenance a disappearing or an art that's disappearing in our industry with the advent of maybe tech?
If it is, I think it will be to the massive strength of people like you that are going to stick with it, because you can forget all the tech. Relationships and good personal interactions will always trump everything else. I mean, give me a phone and I would still beat the guy.
Is that because it's our kind of, I mean, we're all within 1 or 2 years of each other.
Yeah. I think you need the tech though. To be fair, to be competitive today, you've got to understand your cost base can be significantly improved by having good technology, good AI, good data mining, good nurturing processes. But I think put that in the hands of an idiot and you've still got a business that will fail. Yeah. You have to have the leadership, the person who can understand, that can actually command the tech to do and behave in a certain way that beholds their values, because the tech will only do
what it's told,
and it will only behave in a certain way.
How does someone doing that, like running a business? It's interesting. I had James Cocker and Google Clint on.
Yeah.
It was massively about those social media and ads, and I think the general gist of it is you should have someone doing this like for you, specialists who understand it, who are tracking it, who are trending it. They know what they're doing. They're a marketing specialist. Most estate agents have a couple of negs, a lister or a lister manager, a director, and not a lot of attention tends to go on the specialists that are probably required, certainly now, but moving forward in those areas of marketing.
The game's changed though, isn't it? Like from where you were, you think when we were at the C word 15 years ago.
That's countrywide, guys. Countrywide.
Yeah,
we can say countrywide. We'll have a chat about them as well.
Do we have to?
Yeah. But back then it was about putting it in the paper, and then putting it on Rightmove. Yeah.
That's what we were talking about earlier. Yeah.
Whereas now the game, where agents. So I've got no right to win in the premium market in my area. There's a really big agent in my area that has invested hundreds of thousands in the paper year on year. They're 15 times the size I am. They've got 100 times the budget I have. But they're just doing the same old things that they've been doing for the last 10, 15 years. They've not moved on. They've not evolved. And the thing is, when you've
Why do you think that is, though? Like, again, you would recognise brands like that all over the country that have sat in the past and still keep doing the same things that they've always done. Is it ignorance or is it
complacency?
Complacency?
Complacency, and their board hasn't changed. So, if you've got people that grew up, some people can't change because they were successful doing something in the 90s. There is a perception, and they now lead these businesses, the corporates we're talking about, I think. They want to run the corporate the way it was when they were an estate agent. Well, the fact of the matter is that they're rowing a ship and the other guy's got an engine. They're done for. I think the corporates will probably start to centralise around lettings, and I think sales will fall back into the domain of the independent guys that know how to have relationships and have got decent technology.
It does feel like it's moving down that way.
It's 100%. You've only got to look at, you use Spectre, I use Sprift, but if you look at the data sets, the independent agents and the self-employed brokerage models and the ones where there's more contact with the client, they don't have to wait 10 chains of command to get a bloody decision on the leaflet or whatever it is they want to try and do. They are gathering market share, both in terms of listings and percentage of the market that sells, but the corporates are gaining market share in the letting space, primarily through acquisition and to hide to the shareholders' losses. I mean, they are buying turnover and profit to be able to say, "Oh, we've hit our target." They fail to say that they spent 50 million doing it, so yeah, I think you'll see that. But so they don't, and they will always use the excuse, "We're too big to make the change."
But yeah, yes, agreed. I'm just sorry, I kind of cut you off there, James. You were talking about the relationships, and you haven't got the right to, I use the word penetrate that market, the premium market in that area.
So that's our podcast, is it?
Well, that was my other one that David and I do.
I'm going to say,
I want to be on that one.
But I think agents, if they have got a relationship ability and that understanding of people, but they back themselves with the right technology and automation and AI, like you've just said, you can fast track your way into a market.
Yeah. I mean, there's different angles of it. I mean, obviously the complete agent, direct mail, getting through the right doors to the right people, being able to implement the marketing. We've got, a home stylist as well. We've got create. I mean, the biggest competitor has a marketing department, but like Iain just said, they've got to go through a board in order to make a decision. Whereas I can sit there and go, "Why don't we try this?" And we can give it a go. The other thing as well is I do feel like, not just taking aim at that particular business, but a lot of businesses underpay people, and they'll pay the bottom rate in terms of sort of starting salaries. And you don't attract the right people, and the whole. And I totally get it. You're right. Rowing a ship when there's an engine. But I do feel like, and we talked about this recently, myself, Dave, and Iain, about the the old school element of estate agency has been lost with a lot of agents, and that they just chuck it on Rightmove and hope that it's going to sell. And if it doesn't sell, let's just keep chopping the price until someone buys it. Whereas the whole, we're talking a lot about relationships today, and relationships are so important. And we've really kind of tried to drill home to even our own teams and our members that it's all about relationships, especially in this market, because it's got kind of, we're not in a recession, but the market that I'm certainly seeing across the country, it's got that kind of recession-y feel to it. And you need to be able to have conversations, not just with these sellers, but with buyers, and go back to that old school way of thinking, for all of those things I said countrywide. Again, when we were there, one of the great things they did teach us was about, getting on the phone and speaking to people. And one of the things that I identified in that environment was who's going to buy a house. And, you obviously focus and drill down on who's going to buy, when the market's great and the inquiries are coming in, anyone, my 8-year-old son could sell a house in 2021.
I was talking to one of my clients I mentor in London, and I was saying that, are they operating in this market with a summer mindset? So, in other words, they're still waiting for roast duck to fly in mouth and hope a little bit.
London boys seem to have an excuse, don't they? I mean, but it is a micro market. Certainly, prime central London is. I mean, you're in a prime market, but not London. You're not subservient, particularly to demographic or the rate of the pound, how strong the pound is. That's that type of thing. But ultimately, I'm not so sure the art of estate agency is lost. I think the leaders don't know how to teach it. I think the people would be very capable. I think the generation X, Z, whatever you want to call them, are very capable of getting on the phone. They're just not led to do it.
I think that's, yeah.
They're not taught. Then nobody is sitting down and holding them accountable or having a conversation with them or showing them how to do it. They might tell them, they might bark at them for not getting the right numbers, but actually, does anyone say, right, I'll do it now. Listen, bang, bang, bang. I'll make some phone calls. I will show you how to understand the craft of agency.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think technology's had a part to play in dulling down and making it vanilla. I mean, because at the end of the day, in most estate agents, Rightmove is their best negotiator. So that in itself has vanillaized estate agency. And as you were saying, in general terms, taking out the elite tier of estate agents, and there is a growing elite tier of either young people coming in and starting up their new businesses and doing it deliberately differently. They're starting with a white piece of paper rather than building on a model. They're doing it differently, whether that's self-employed, how they charge, the strategy for putting a house on the market, not putting it on the portal straight away. All that sort of stuff is starting to develop, and I think it's fantastic. But it seems to be with the younger set that are coming through because they don't have that mindset of doing it. But basically, during that vanilla period, we also had unprecedented growth in the market. So you could make money by being average. Or less than average. Now, my personal view is if you are an average negotiator and you are okay, you are almost certainly replaceable by technology now. So if you really do want this to be your career, you've got to be above average. And if you're not getting that from your existing employer, find a different way. Because it won't come. You can't just turn up as a 25-year-old and know how to be a crafty estate agent that's got that guile, that effort, that energy to be able to spot a deal. You can't. You have to see somebody do that in order to think, right, now I know how they got their ducks in. I know how they aligned that conversation. And then you can repeat it.
There's such a lot of power in conversation, isn't there? There's such a lot of. I always say conversations convert. That is the best way to convert is to be in conversation, because that's where all the nuances are. It's where you get to understand needs. You can be curious, and I really do believe that's becoming a forgotten art because leaders aren't teaching it. They're probably not teaching it because maybe they don't feel confident themselves, or
they don't know.
They just don't know. It's become less important because of technology, Rightmove, as you alluded to, and those kind of things. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I remember speaking to Heather Staff about it, because she had a slide at an event where I think it was 90% of people 30 or under, if the name isn't saved in their phone, they won't answer it. And I do think the way that communication is changing, because you're quite right, there's a lot of context in conversation. So, how you write something on a text, unless you're really kind of into text and you understand, capitalization is shouting, what different emojis seem to change every 5 minutes. Like, unless you understand the context in those conversations, like, I like to think, all of us around the table here, we're kind of old school in the way we communicate, in terms of we'd much rather sometimes pick up the phone and have a conversation with somebody. And I think that there's so much in conversation that is lost in text. You can say, saying something in text like, I'll see you later, thanks, could be read as see you later, thanks, when it could be see you later, thanks.
Yeah.
As text, you can't see it.
But has technology made the industry better or worse?
Well, it depends what for. I mean, clearly, from the consumer's perspective, they might prefer to receive a WhatsApp than a phone call. So we have to accept that we have to be a consumer-centric. But I think a consumer would prefer to receive a call from somebody they trust and like. So the first part is get yourself trusted and liked, because then they'll want to talk to you.
And they'll save your name and phone.
But if it is a cold call, an interruption of the person's daily, whether you put an advert on their screen, put a letter through their door, you're interrupting them. There is a place for that. I know some people vehemently say you can't have interruption marketing. I'm going to shout bullshit. I think that's still part of the cake. I think that's still part of the pie, if done correctly with the right technology, or with the right wording and at the right times and all that sort of stuff. But if you've built a relationship with a client, to then start communicating them through either WhatsApp or email or text seems balmy to me, because you can't read emotion. It can be easily misconstrued. You can't. Although there are technologies now that will save that into your CRM. Largely speaking, most estate agents are having non-GDPR compliant conversations on a handset that doesn't belong to the business. The conversation is not logged or it's a non-compliant piece if you think about it. And if the person leaves, they've got the contact, unless you're running WhatsApp for Business. So yes, and certainly, I mean, one little simple bit of technology is to be able to have I can't remember what it's called now, but most of my clients have got it, where you tap the client's phone on a valuation, it puts your contact into their address book, so that they can see it's you, and it is your picture, and it has got the blue ticks, and it says it's approved, it's not spam, it's real, it's this person. You just bang, it's done. But build the relationship first. Build the relationship first. If I rang you, you'd probably answer. If you'd never heard of me, you probably wouldn't.
Yeah. I agree.
It's the quality of the conversation, though, as well, isn't it?
I've been talking to some clients about this. Go on, carry on.
I was just going to say, if cold calls, they can be good, and interruption marketing, I think there is a place for it, and that could be, arguably the quality of the cold call needs to be really good to have any sort of success. But I think the best form of maybe interruption marketing is door knocking, and I know it divides a lot of people. But what door knocking? I think it's great. I think if you need to do it as part of your business and you're an established business and it's your main source, I think you've got a problem elsewhere. However, if you're trying to break into an area like we did, like Richard, who works for me, one of my area partners, he broke into Lavenden, Oney, and no one knew who James Kendall were in that area. But like in any business, you need customers, and people put these big things on stakes outside their house to say they want to sell their house. And Richard basically did when he was breaking into the area was knocking on the doors and saying, "Look, I'm with James Kendall now. Notice you've got your house up for sale. How's it going?" Like, quite a few doors slammed in his face, but he just kept coming around adding value, and it eventually got checked. Rather than going, "Hi, I can sell your house. I see your house is up for sale. Do you want to sell your house with me?" It was, "How's it going?" Like, just dropping a casual conversation, and then over time. Like, one lady, I remember, where we really broke into the village, she said to him, "Oh, you again."
Just going on to the premium part of the market, and something that you specialise in more so, is that an end of the market which is... Because I hear stats, Gatesy, and I heard David talk about some stats the other day, because there's a lot of listed properties, a lot of available properties. And if you go online and you watch Selling Sunset, which I'm sure you're a big fan of, and all of these lovely shows, you don't see many deals happening on these shows. You don't hear many people getting closed business. Are people in that sector, that end of the market, too obsessed with how it all looks rather than how it actually performs? Agents.
What was that? Sorry, agents or owner? Do you mean? Or,
yeah. So like, is the marketing piece so much more important now than actually selling it? Because if you look, I think the stats, I might be wrong, it's around about 20% of what gets put on the market completes.
Wow. I mean, that's a big. I mean, but also
that might not be. But as something
we need someone to phone in and tell us
yeah.
that's.
I think get Gacy on the phone. Get him on the blower.
You need to get him on there. But it was something like that, or Chris Watkin. I can't remember. But
it's certainly a much smaller percentage.
But it's like 2 or 3, maybe. I mean, I think the average market was about. That's a fraction around. Well, I think it's around about 50% or 52% or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's quite a significant situation. But when you go on Instagram or Facebook or you see all of these shows, everything's about what's available, but not many people are converting.
Yeah, I mean, last year we were just over 82% of everything that we listed. So anything we took on, we exchanged on 82%. So
why? How do you do it and the others don't?
I think it comes down to why. You know, we obviously kiss a lot of frogs, and you go and see people.
Do you kiss them on the valuation?
Well,
or the
my secret sauce here.
on the marketing meeting. But what I mean by that is that, do you not work with certain clients because they're unrealistic and I don't want to work in that market where it's just a listing, it's going to cost us £1,500 to put a little dot on the board where we could say, well, we've got another listing, it's on Rightmove, but actually it's pointless.
But I have the mindset of that we're running a business, not a public service. So, you know, if people are coming to market, we need to find out why they're coming to market. You know, sometimes there is education that needs to take place. So you're educating people on data, you're educating people in what the market's actually doing. But, you know, when someone says, oh, well, you know, if we don't get the price that we want, then we're probably not going to move. You just need to be able to have something about you to drill down. Why? Why are you putting it on the market in the first place? What do you need to achieve? Okay, well, we want to buy this and that is that price. Well, if you had to come down 300 grand on your price and you could get that for 300, would you still move? Well, yes, I would. So
I had that very conversation with a friend yesterday, and he said to me, and he lives out of the area. So he lives 45, 50 minutes down the road, and he's like, I want to get 800 for it. I was like, oh, okay. And I know the type of character he is. You won't be listening to this.
It's worth 650, yeah.
Fucking arsehole. No, I'm only joking. He's actually a good guy. But by the time I'd had a little look, what are we talking? Have a guess. 650 to 700. That's the open house strategy, right? Yeah. If you're going to do it. And he likes the idea of open house, but guess what price he wants it?
800.
850.
750, 800. So, you know, you're educating around it, but it's like you just said, it's so much more than that. It's about what is the goal? What's the outcome for the whole sale? But you do see a lot of agents still, even when you're seeing less demand in that market and more supply, still just adding to the supply.
The sausage machine, yeah. I mean, look, I mean, obviously, I believe I've made more money turning down clients than I ever made accepting them, because working with people for the wrong reasons, i.e. their price, motivation, fee level or whatever, is not aligned to what my business values are. Keeping your business values intact. I mean, 83%, did you say? So that's a world-class stat. It doesn't matter how you do. The upper market is always skewed, though, by Prime Central London. So because Prime Central London is about 20% sell, and that's because they don't care. It might have been
a stat about Prime Central London.
Well, no, I think it was probably a national stat, because I've seen the stat.
Yeah.
But it includes Prime Central London. And Prime Central London, however, if you took Prime Central London out, no one's at 83% in any sector. You know, that is a great statistic. But the FOMO of missing out on instruction is where the beginning and end of our industry destruction is. It's the fear of not winning it, either because the leader is focusing on listing numbers, which of course are important, but it's really the conversion of listings at what fee, and what does the customer feel about us at the end of the process. And no one ever stops to ask any of those things. But sometimes you're better off winning the instruction second.
I think now you are.
So sometimes you're better off winning it second.
Wish you all the best, you know.
But also I mean, although I think the number of people that will do this, to say to the person 800,000, look, I hear you, but on that basis, I'm not your agent, or whatever version of words they wish to use. You've got to have a good bedside manner to turn down business. You can't be arrogant, but you know it's okay to do it. At that point, a vast majority of them, or a good section of them, if you can genuinely show with evidence-based valuing rather than just talking about it, they crack. because a lot of the time they're just testing you, aren't they? Prime central London's different because the wealth there and the demographics are such that some people cannot sell for less than they paid for it. It's just not in their religion almost. They just cannot do it, and they'll either turn to rent or leave it empty. So London is prime central London is a completely different entity. But out in normal suburbia where you're operating, or in my place, Berkshire, it could be the same as your town. It is still a lower proportion that sell, but I think it's not because of the experts. It's because you get the occasional person who they go beyond their real skill set, and when sat in front of this big house, they get all excited and they use price as a weapon to win the instruction rather than reality. And if in doubt, and you're a young lister or even an old lister, you're not sure on the price of this property, what is your likely strategy going to be? What is your likely headspace going to be? It's going to be, I'm going to go over the top rather than under.
But
that's why I think data's really important.
Is it different in the premium market than it is the rest of the market with those principles?
No, I don't think it is. I think good, sound, solid advice.
Yeah. I think data across all parts. The thing is that the higher up you go in the market, the more subjective it is what it's worth. Whereas if you go in the mid to lower end of the market, the 4-bed detached on the David Wilson housing estate and the 4-bed detached on David Wilson housing estate, yes, there'll be a small element of subjectivity in terms of my garden's bigger and the builder built this one for himself.
It was a show home.
Yeah.
Biggest plot on the development.
Yeah. South facing garden. Or loft ladder. I don't know, something silly like that.
Yeah. So there's that. There's a small nuances in that situation. But, in the top end of the market, I've had instances where I've achieved £500,000 more than the next lowest valuation. And that is just because it's been so subjective. The data points towards a house being worth 1.2, but I know
you've got someone, or
not even that. I just know
instinct.
that
it's just gut instinct, isn't it? It's just knowledge. I mean, your market's different in the fact that you're not going to have 10 comps identical.
Yeah.
And the higher you go, the more they might be similar square footage, but they're always going to be a different layout. They're going to be in a slightly different part of town. The acreage will be different. The curb appeal will be different. And there are many factors that make up a property's value. Square footage is probably the one universal tag that you can start your valuation from, but then everything else is, well, how does the flow of this property work? Is it could be massive, but you've got to go from room to room to room, and that's going to have an impact. How it looks, is it the Vogue architecture of the day? How private is it? How secure is it? There's a million. What schools are in the catchment area of? Yeah. And that's where these guys come in, the real experts. That's you asked me where would I go? I'd probably go to the market down here because I can just go to that and I know the price before I leave.
Yeah.
And if the client isn't in that space, I get it. But when you get an inexperienced valuer going to one of the bigger ones, they are likely not to do the research that you do, and their gut instinct will possibly be right. But their mindset will be to go above their gut instinct to win the listing, and all they've created is a problem in the market that stagnates stock. Well, and often it's their boss they're trying to bloody please, not or hit a target or win a competition, or maybe worst case scenario they get paid for listing, which is a massive bugbear of mine. Paying a lister to list properties just seems a recipe for disaster to me. But I can't understand that strategy at all. But I do have some sympathy in the higher ends, because you could look at two houses that are roughly the same square footage and they might be £1 million different in price.
Yeah.
But that's why you have to have specialists, I think, at that end of the market. They've got to be someone that really knows. You're quite locally concentrated. So
we are. But equally, I've just listed one, was it 25 miles out of my patch, 3.5 mil. But I'd rather travel 45 minutes for 52 grand than I would.
Yeah, if it's a 3-bedroom semi, you wouldn't have took it on, would you?
A little flat.
Yeah, I just wouldn't. But but again, that boils down to relationships. That came from LinkedIn.
Relationships.
Buyers will travel further as well for bigger properties, certainly in the rural places. For example, people they didn't used to come to us at Romans and say, I want to be in Crowthorne. It'd be, well, I want to be in Berkshire. Okay, well, that's a big county. They would then give you the description of the property they wanted. Even if they were in the upper ends, it would be, I want to be. It wasn't specific, unless they were very local people already that were well heeled, and they had connections to a specific village. But specialising in any market is how I see the market moving forward, particularly with the self-employed brokerage model. I think if you can hyper-local and specialise in a very specific type of property, you can outcharge, outperform, and you will win those instructions because you're
you'll be seen as well, won't you?
The
and heard.
expert. You're absolutely the expert in that particular field.
So relationships, we kind of touched on that. You don't think it's a forgotten art, and do you think AI is going to really help people get into those now? So you said the agents that are not agents, really. They're not agents. They're not actually able to have great conversations. They don't know how to find deals.
That are dealing with they're order takers.
They're going to kind of disappear, along with a lot of admin tasks, which is what we're saying. But actually, what's going to happen, and this is maybe a futuristic question, are a lot of the agents that have got those skills going to elevate themselves and collaborate more?
Collaborate, I hope. And I believe that AI should be specifically designed on a number of factors. Does it make my client's life easier? Am I making myself easier to do business with? Am I making my team's life easier?
Yeah.
Is it economical for me to use it? And is it effective? And if it doesn't do any of those four things, it's magpie syndrome. Just kick it into the long grass. Yeah. If it does one or two of those things, or three or four of those things, absolutely do it. But the whole purpose is to allow your powerhouses to go and build relationships and stop filling out forms.
So when you look at your teams at the minute and you go, who's got the X factor? Who can do that? Who can we put on that platform, that pedestal? And what do we need to get behind them? What sort of things do you need to get behind them?
In terms of technology?
Yeah, technology, support.
I think the heavy lifting, small little jobs you get done by technology, as long as it isn't degrading the service to the consumer or creating a problem somewhere else. It's got to be accurate every time without the consumer going, oh my God, I want to speak to a human. But if you
like a new bank.
So banks are an example where they've gone so far in one direction that you can't actually see your bank manager anymore. And that's hard. So therefore, you may as well go all the way online with your banking and have the best online solution that you can find. And that isn't the old high street banks because they're halfway between two stools.
Yeah.
Go and
do you think a lot of agents are between two stools?
Yeah, 100%. And I think it will specialise. You're going to have the cheap, pilot high, self-serve agency type of models. And I think you're going to have the experts and the people that are going to add value, and the consumer will make their choice. Do I go to the supermarket for my meat, or do I go to the organic butcher on the high street, and which is more expensive? As an individual, you've got to decide which camp you want to be in. What represents you as a business, but then you strategize it around afterwards. But
it's interesting because you started at the low fee, low model, sort of high volume. Yeah. That was your initial strategy, and you canned it. How long into?
God, probably 2 years in. Not
2
even
years
that, a year in.
But I think someone listening to this, watching this, it might be you for argument's sake. What was it that was the turning point for you to specialise?
I wasn't making any money. In the beginning, I went from full transparency. I don't tell anyone. I tell anyone this that asks. I put it out there. When I set up the business, I had no business plan, no nothing. I was probably the worst person to look at in terms of how to run a business. But I learned very quickly that high volume, you need to, like any business, like we buy any car, for example, they make their money by making £100 off every car, and which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you think the BCA group, they're doing 100,000 cars a week, all of a sudden, that's quite a lot of money. But as an owner operator, as a single person at the time, it's hard work, estate agency, and to get work really hard for someone for 6 months. To get paid £1,000, because that's what I was charging, £999 plus VAT. I just feel sick now saying it, but would you work for 6 months for £1,000? I don't know. Well, I don't know anyone that would work for 6 months for £1,000, not in this country. But what made me switch was I realised I wasn't making any money, but when I really switched into the sort of the mid to upper end of the market, because I wouldn't say I'm upper end, like 5-6 million plus. I could do that, but I just feel like Iain said earlier, like if you put it to like PCL markets where houses wouldn't sell for sometimes 2, 3, 4, 5 years, it's not viable business for me. It's great to have on your website and put on Instagram and say, look, I'm in the front of a £5 million house, but I want stuff that's going to sell, turn over, and make money. And just on the way that I think the agency market's going to go, I think AI is going to mop up the lower end of the estate agency market. And I think you've only got, again, you said there, banking, everything's gone online in a way. But if you look at high-end banks, like your Coots or your Handelsbankens, like they're very much old-fashioned in their values in the way, you can go and see a manager. They can sign off £2 million in branch. And, hotels, you go to a low-end Premier Inn, for example, you're greeted by a screen that you tap on and press the button. You go into the Ritz, the door's open for you and you deal with a person.
And they park your car.
And
the biggest lesson for is it? I don't know if this is filmed or purely podcast. As it sounds.
Filmed.
So for your watchers and listeners, the biggest lesson that you've just heard is he had the bravery to change his model.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
So a lot of people don't do that. What they would have done is just carried on regardless until either oblivion, or they'd have worked their finger to the bone for the next 20 years and earned no money and been very unhappy. Success has got to be measured by happiness, not pounds, for a start. So you were probably unhappy, felt you were working for no reward, but what you had is the balls to say, I got it wrong.
Yeah.
And you pivoted.
Yeah.
Now you stayed in a estate agency, but you saw the site. But that is a massive lesson for anybody watching this, because most people can't do that. They will fight for what they originally set out for by lowering fees further still. They'll go further by saying, right, well, I'm going to go lower on my fee to get more volume. And I'm going to go lower on my fee to get more volume. I'm going to hire trainees at £5,000 per annum through one of these YTS things but they keep dropping the ball. They literally cannot unpick their business model. And unpicking your business model and pivoting is a massive leadership feather in your cap, in my opinion.
I think like failure it's not a bad thing if you learn from it, if you're willing to admit the mistake and learn it and move forward with it, just make a change. Just on the sort of the recruitment side of it, because you've obviously got a recruitment background as well. Are you finding that, or will you find going forward, or is that likely to be the case, that it's really hard to find that new generation of estate agents coming in, because it is hard work?
I think there's a lot of mindset though, for younger people in general that I've come across, where they almost want to work 3 days a week, get paid $100,000 a year, and all expenses paid to Dubai like 2-3 times a year. So, but also
they have heard that's possible.
Yeah,
we had a lady,
that's the problem. Marketing.
We had a lady called Sylvia on, who's from Dubai. She was saying the failure rate is not about 90% of agents and self-employed, because it's all commission only out there.
So, in Dubai, yeah, Dubai's dog eat dog,
yeah. Which I found was really interesting, because again, if you look from a distance, you see only the top agents, that top 10%, and what they're doing, what they're earning, and how glamorous it all looks. But what I'm getting at is that, when did you get into estate agency? What age were you?
16. The day I left school.
17.
And I was 18, 19. I was 19. Are many 16, 17, 18, 19-year-olds looking at this industry and going, I want in?
It depends. I think there's a lot of people that watch Selling Sunset and watch the Instagram tours of maybe the higher end that think, I could.
I suppose that's where I was getting to earlier with the stat. That
I don't think the desire to join the industry has changed. I think the industry has become less desirable to be in.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So, for example, I had decided, I was on the Iain Macbeth podcast the other day, so I'm only going to repeat what I said there. I left school with a view of a summer of absolute madness. My view was I was going to be going for it. I'm going to have a year off, sort of thing, which I'd done every year anyway. But I walked down the hill and there was a agent required board in a window, went in. But there was a company car dangled pretty quick, which is hard to get. The age of 17 now, it's very hard, but company cars have disappeared. You've got to self-fund your company car. The guy was clearly earning a lot of money, the guy that interviewed me. Yeah.
What gave that away?
Just his demeanour. I mean, just everything about him. He was a very stereotypical 80s estate agent.
Did he have braces?
No.
Okay.
He didn't, but he did have a white Porsche 911 with the Grand Prix white with the wheel arches, which is what? No, it wasn't. No, it was a proper estate agent. Sorry, Russell. Look, he became a hero figure to me, but ultimately I literally started work 2 days later. But the package they put in front of me was the reason I gave up on the summer was because they offered me. I could see the commission element. The basic was okay. But I sort of looked at the numbers and then asked for the evidence of what they were doing and everything. And in those days, they had to just give me a spreadsheet. And, it was like, okay, so if I sell that, you're going to give me this and a car.
So it wasn't the old countrywide calculator where you're going to earn this year. Look, you've got look.
You mean the one that's broken? That one. Yeah. No. It was a genuine. I could see the earning opportunity, and it was like, okay, so I can earn 40-50% more than my friends.
Yeah.
And I had no particularly brilliant qualifications.
Same.
But I had a bit of craft, a bit of
personality.
Yeah, a bit of oomph, and I think those people still exist. I think that there's a real down view. I understand that there are definitely differences between the youth of today and the youth of yesterday. And I'm sure our parents would have looked on us as being substandard to them. And I don't actually think any of that's real. No. But our industry has become, if you go as a trainee neg now, one, they tend not to want to employ the 16, 17-year-olds because they can't drive. And secondly, whatever they do, they put them on a minimum wage. Yeah. If you're paying the minimum wage rather than 40-50% more than the minimum wage, expect to get people at that level of the spectrum. So you've either got to take a risk and pay somebody more and pick the very best person from the interview process, make sure your interview process is solid and it's not just gut feel, that you can really... I would always advocate competency-based interviews to make sure the person actually has the competencies you're looking for, rather than the ability to talk about it. Yeah, have they actually got it? Recruit some good people, but then look at yourself. If those people are not developing and they're not creating the craft, a lot of people come to me and say they just haven't got the craft. They haven't got what I had, and it's like, okay, but that's you. They've been with you for a year. Yeah. So before we start talking to them, I need to talk to you. I need to get to you and allow you to understand that if they're failing, it is your responsibility.
But do you not feel there's an element, though? And I'm kind of in between camps. I'm not saying you're both in different camps completely, but, there's a lot of tough conversations that need to happen in a estate agency. There's a lot of resilience required. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree, massively.
And that maybe a certain generation, maybe the one just before the newer one that's coming through, if you like, there's an element where it was too challenging. It's maybe there's too much to responsibility to take, and I don't know. It just feels like there's an element where you've got to make it more desirable.
One, you've got to make it more desirable, and two, you've got to wait for the people that are tolerant and resilient.
So you've got to be a lot slower in that area of recruitment.
Well, let's say, for example, I put a job ad out and said, right, £100,000, 18-year-old. I want the best. I want the best 18-year-old on the planet. Yeah. I'm not talking about your education. I'm not talking about your exam results. I want someone who can hustle, someone who's got honesty, that's got decency, blah blah blah. And I said it's 100,000. I promise you, I'll find people ringing me up that are of the caliber I need. Now, okay, 100,000 is an unrealistic number. The problem isn't that the caliber doesn't exist. The problem is the magnet you're putting into the marketplace to bring them is dull. It doesn't work. Because you're saying, look, I want you to work most weekends. I want you to work under ridiculous pressures. I want you to. I'm going to pay you.
Dialing up the realism of it, and it's dialing that up and making that really clear, being really clear about the kind of person that you want coming in. But the rewards are really definitely there for that person.
Yeah, look, yeah, absolutely. And then
the training.
Tell them what the training's like. What the proper package is. The corporates do or have traditionally given at least a very good grounding in the legality side of estate agency. I don't think they've done a particularly good job of the craft of estate agency. Those people were either they had it or they didn't. I didn't see anything in Countrywide, for example, that particularly taught you how to be an estate agent. It taught you how to be compliant and taught you how to work around your HR department. I mean, basically, that's what you come out knowing, how to screw your HR department and get a big check if you fall out with them. That's what they actually teach you. But I don't think there's a lack of. I really don't have this down on. There is a little bit of woke Britain that's causing this problem of people being a bit weak. Yeah. There is a little bit of that, but I promise you, if you pay correctly, have the right environment and the right leadership to stop that at source, there's no shortage of talent. There's a shortage of the bees will come to the honey.
And I don't think there's that many. If you dress it the way we've just talked about it, and you delivered that as a company. There aren't many businesses or industries out there that actually do that, that offer that, those kind of people at the minute.
You're talking about estate agents in general?
In general, actually, but because, genuinely, you do not need qualifications to be in this industry. You do need resilience, you do need to graft, you do need to hustle, you do need to have a good attitude, you do need to have great communication skills. But if you've got all of that and the right training and processes are in place and you're willing to really work hard, you're right. The rewards should be there at the end of the.
And that's whether you're 18 or 30. If you're in a career that you don't like,
shouldn't it?
And I mean, certainly one of my clients really resists employing other people's estate agents. He doesn't want people he wants people from other industries that have got the right attributes and the right competencies. He will create them, but he's happy. But what a lot of people do is say, right, okay, but because you're starting at the bottom, I'm going to have to put you on this bottom salary. He will reward them based on their experience and say, right, well, here's the salary.
Yeah,
we're going to need to take this leap in your knowledge and experience and your day-to-day processes. But if we're working longer, agency is not a short-hour business.
No, it's not. It's not a 9 to 5, is it?
You work weekends, and there will be pressures, and there will be lots of ups and downs. You'll do a deal, you'll be high. You lose a deal, you'll be absolutely wanting to jump off the cliff. So you have to have this resilience. But if people have got that, I don't believe there's a shortage of people. I think there's a shortage of enigmatic leaders that can get that across, and they're not backed by a pay structure that anybody of the caliber we're talking about they're going to go into recruitment. They're going to go into selling prop tech to us. They're the people that now sell to us and are striping estate agents daily, getting you to sign contracts to buy their technology.
Well, let's touch on that. Because as long as you get one more listing or one more sale exchange, you're all right. Is that all right?
Which means you need about 500 of them.
I hate that.
It's good.
There's so much.
We had this on the last one. It came up.
So much legacy bullshit out there, like that's being touted as the next best thing. So people, and the problem is, there's a lot of agents chasing silver bullets. You know, they'll plug in this.
Why are agents still paying big money for old clunky systems?
Yeah. You see it, and like in the Complete Agent, when we do like our annual planning and we look at a lot of people, what people are spending on different tech systems, and it's like, why do you need that? What there's so much, like so many costs and subscriptions that people are paying out for. I don't want to get sued, but like you look at what's there and you think, why are you paying for that? You don't need
examples
that.
There,
Yeah, I mean, I would strip out a client's P&L pretty quick and nearly always reduce their cost by more than my charges because there's just a load of waft in there, or stuff they didn't even know they had.
Yeah.
Country, what? Oh no, I better not say that. When I took over some offices there, I mean, obviously we had to save money because there was no money being made. But the negligence of whoever had been there prior, in terms of cleaning contracts, magazine contracts, that no one even knew they were there. One of the offices had 5 cleaners billing us.
Oh my God!
So I mean, okay, that doesn't happen in small businesses.
So it's the small businesses,
small businesses still have products, and you say, okay, how are you using that? Well, we only use it for this. Okay, if you only use it for that, get rid.
I think that a lot of that comes from complacency in good times. In other words, that people do miss all of those things. So I think good housekeeping is really important, and I think it's a good time to do it. I would say at the minute.
Build to sell and review your cost base every single quarter and just double check and make sure that is that product still of value. We're trying in the ICG to work with estate agents so that they become owners of the supply chain. So we're working with agents to say, right, if you work with this particular supplier, this supplier will either give you a rev share back or they'll put equity into the company that you're now a shareholder. So we're making our members shareholders of ICG.
So keeping all of the money within...
Not all, because the prop tech companies have to make money.
Yeah.
I think there's 3 things you can't do. We
can't
now become the vultures and screw the prop techs to the floor. They've got to make money. They're a business. But there are some that are making money. One great big one that we all know who it is. They are bleeding the industry dry. They are like football agents. They're taking money out and it's not coming back into the ecosystem. It's going off to their shareholders. Now, of course, there's lots of ones further down the scale. But there are lots of really good prop tech companies who are willing to work with the community to say, right, we will give equity in our business to the ICG, which our members have a share of. So if they sell or award a dividend, our members will benefit from that and it will cascade back into their P&Ls or into their personal wealth, depending on how they want to hold the shares. Because I think we need to consolidate the supplier space. If we consolidate, well, look, the portal world has consolidated. So the portals are worth billions because they don't. If there was 100 portals to choose from, they'd all be worth a lot less. But 1 or 2 of them have got us by the short and curlies. Rightmove had an offer of 6.2 billion, I think it was, which they turned down. It was a matter of public.
That was Zillow, wasn't it? Or was it? No,
the
Australian company,
it was
wasn't
the
it?
Australian guys, yeah. So, but if you take that 6.2 billion and divide it by every physical estate agency office registered in the UK, that's £250,000 each per office. How many offices you got? 4. So you'd have had £1 million if you owned an equal share of it based on each office. We're saying that we will go and work with the technological companies, but they have to give us something back. We don't mind, for example, there might be 3 or 4 different businesses or maybe 6, 7 different businesses, but if we can get one to grow bigger and our members are working with it and they're helping get the product to work correct and integrate with the relevant things, and because of that, this company's value goes up, that's a good thing now because they've got a share of it. And that's what I mean by consolidation and cooperation.
I mean, I love that. It's a great purposeful vision, and I think that's great that you're creating that, and I didn't really fully understand that until you just explained it, so that's good for us to know. But do you think a lot of prop tech isn't solving real problems?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's selling promises, and again, like I think you said it earlier, Ian, about the magpie, people looking for the shiny new thing all the time, and if I just buy this bit of prop tech, then I'll sell, X amount of more houses. I'll just buy this, and it will solve that problem.
So salespeople are the easiest people to sell to. That's the first thing.
Market stream.
So they are. They are the easiest people to sell to. But ultimately, you only need 3 or 4 bits of really good kit.
What would they be?
Well, I would definitely be wanting to have something that was analysing my big data and allowing me to, or guiding me, when is the best time to make contact with that person based on their real life behaviours.
Nurture an interactive system which gives you the people to speak to at the right time.
Yeah, and just it may even be putting messages out for you that triggers a response that they click on a certain thing, which means, okay, there's a mortgage lead. I was sat with a company the other day with the MD, and he was a bit unsure about they owned a mortgage business, and we set a beta bot to call every single client that they hadn't spoken to for 3 years. There'd been no contact with the people. They were either valuations that hadn't gone anywhere or people whose transaction had completed, and there was a mix. And AI can call tens of thousands of people an hour. But it booked 40 mortgage appointments. The owner of the business had the audacity to call me the next day and say, yeah, but 10 of them cancelled.
Oh, no.
It's like, okay, but the 30 that didn't cancel. Yeah. Now, apply that to valuations. Now, I don't think you'd get the same result because it's a bigger decision. And of course, there's a lot of talk about remortgaging, and most of those were about people interested in remortgaging. But of the other, God knows how many conversations it made, in a high, I don't know the exact numbers, so I don't want to mislead your viewers, but there was a reasonable percentage, maybe about 15, 16%, gave information to help us to make another call another day, which was what their current rate was when it came to an end. And they were fully okay with the bot calling them because it was just trying to help them. As long as you do it. So having... When people are in your CRM or when they're in your databases, they are doing things. They're clicking on the stuff that you email out to them. They're opening your WhatsApp and responding or not responding. Those behaviours, along with, if you take that person, if you took Iain White and said, right, if they looked at my most recent history, they'd know, well, have I registered a birth? No. Have I been divorced? Yes, okay, in the last 3 or 4 years. There's a number of triggers that make it much more likely that I'm going to be selling. And then there are some real behaviours that I've done in my database. If you put the two together through either one seamless piece of technology or 2 or 3 bits that talk to each other and collaborate, you are empowering the estate agent to make the call at a time that is more likely to resonate with the receiver. But it will even draft the message now. So it will say, look, I suggest you call this person. And I would imagine that your line should be, did you know your house has increased by 15%? Because we know it has. And the technology is there, the evidence is there, and it provides that sort of scripting. So I think I would definitely want my data to be looked at from a perspective that I could never do. Otherwise, all I can do is say to people, call 100 people today and see if you can get me 5 valuations.
Quickfire questions. We're going to finish off with some quickfire questions for you both. Thank you for your input
Leeds
so far.
will definitely win the title this year.
Chelsea or West Ham? No. Well, anyway. Rightmove. Essential partner or necessary evil?
I think a central partner. I say it might be divisive, and you could look at how they run their business model and their lack of innovation, but equally, it's what the only people that have a problem with Rightmove are estate agents.
I think they're both, because they are a necessary evil. They are actually by default an essential partner. I don't think you could run a business and look the owner in the eye and say, I've got you covered if you're not on Rightmove right now. I'm not entirely sure their model is fit for the future.
Okay.
But today...
Next question. Will social media ever truly beat the portals?
I think no, personally.
No?
I think it will be... I don't think it will be a portal necessarily. I mean, it could be. A lot depends on the way artificial intelligence goes. Because the data's got to be somewhere.
Beat the portals is a strong word. I'm not sure how they'll deal with their shareholder model, because that's the problem with these businesses. They can't pivot like you did because they've got shareholders. I suspect if ever any version of AI / social media, I think it has the capability of outperforming Rightmove, but I think they'll pivot before it kills Rightmove.
Well, what the thing is, why do you want to replace it? What does Rightmove do wrong?
I think if you use what it gives you and you work with it, so leads, branding, all of those different things, you can make it work. Are estate agents underpaid?
Yes.
Or overpaid for what they actually deliver?
Underpaid. Well, I think there's a lot of people in the industry that are underpaid, and I think that's why people leave the industry, because they aren't paid what they're worth. But there are also a lot of, again, this will be controversial possibly, but a lot of average high street estate agents that are overpaid for what they do, and this is why Purple Bricks were able to mop up and do what they did, because it arguably, and I saw it in the town that I worked in, people doing the same old crap over and over, getting the sellers to do their own viewings, do their own sales chasing. Well, why am I going to pay 1% or what is now 0.5% plus VAT when I could pay somebody $1,000 to do the same thing?
I'd say they're underpaid, but I think they're underpaid because there's too many of them. So I think the industry will go to lower headcount. The reason I would say underpaid as well, if you look at the P&Ls of most estate agency, and you've only got to look into the P&Ls of the big corporates, no one's making the millions and millions that they used to. So it's not like we're charging the consumer a lot. It's that a lot of that fee is disappearing out of the industry through the supply network. We've got to get that back. In the States, they've got it back. In Australia, they've got it back. In United Arab Emirates, they've got it back. In England, we just keep paying. So the problem is not the fee per se, it's what percentage of that fee stays in the company as a profit margin.
It's been brilliant to have this conversation. So I'm glad I had a little break in the middle, just in case you didn't get to see that.
We're going to put that in the outtakes.
It's quite nice, actually. Left you here chatting away. Thanks.
It was deliberate. He does it on everyone.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's been really great to have you both on. Thank you, James, Kendall.
Thanks for having me.
Where do people find you?
So on LinkedIn, we're Complete Agent. LinkedIn, Facebook.
And Iain?
You'll either find me on ICG approved or Iain at iancwhite.com is my email address, but with 2 I's, spelt Scottish.
They'll see it on the promo. Guys, it's been brilliant. Thank you so much for watching and being a part of the show. Keep following, keep subscribing, share it with someone you think is going to love this show. Thanks again, guys. We'll see you on the next one.